Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
All right, hello, my friends. Welcome back. It is a very special day. Not only is it Friday the 13th, but I am joined with someone who is somewhat of an expert on the celestial sky clock, and she is a cartographer of the stars. I would love to hear what she thinks about this special day, but first, let me introduce you to Kayleigh Berkana, who you can find on YouTube. And Kayleigh is not only a well-versed astrologer, but she also works with runes and tarot cards. And she is a frequent member of the Weaving Spiders Welcome group. You can also find them on YouTube. Wonderful people, wonderful group. And I feel so blessed to connect with Kayleigh today, fellow Taurus Bull Gang, as we were just talking about. Happy belated birthday, Kayleigh, and welcome to the Loco Listens podcast. How's it going?
Thanks, buddy. Glad to be here. I'm stoked. Yep, Bull Gang in the house.
In the house.
Just a couple of bulls in the china shop, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, the proverbial china shop, watch out for us. Well, like I said, it's wonderful to connect with you, and there are so many cool, I would want to first shout out Chance from the Universe podcast. What's up, Chance? What's up, buddy? That's where I first heard you, and it's kind of cool because that was quite a while ago, and we were just having some funny microphone issues before we hit record. And when I first heard you on YouTube, this was before you even had a microphone, and now here you are, where we've been upgraded, you could say, and I'm really excited to get into it. So for the first ritual question, Kayleigh, I have to ask everyone, when did you start to speak your truth?
Oh, that's a great first question. Okay, I can answer that one. I was all nervous and shit, and I'm like, oh no.
I was like, watch out, there's a ritual question. Yeah.
But yeah, dude, shout out to Chance. What a great dude. I forget who it was that said this, but it was just in the last week. Someone said that Chance has a knack for bringing out the best in people.
Really does.
I'd have to agree with that, really, honestly. He's good at that. When did I start to speak my truth? This is a much more recent thing for me to actually speak my mind and tell people what I'm actually thinking. And especially when it comes to opinions and, just different opinions that go against the consensus and the status quo. And I was actually just talking to a friend today about how there are an infinite number of consensus realities. And it can be so easy to exit one and fall into another.
Right.
So that's been an ongoing battle for me. But anyway, I think that it's come in waves with different things in my life. Like in high school, I graduated in 2009, by the way. So in high school, I was very much into super heavy metal, like fucking heavy death metal. Okay, was that was my jam. And my mom was, or still is, really fundamental Christian, but at the same time can still connect with me a little bit on some woo stuff. So that's really fun.
Nice.
Right? But at that time, that was my truth. It's like, no, I'm fucking angry, and you're gonna let me be angry, and I'm gonna blast this down here, and I don't really give a fuck. So that it started with little things like that. But when it came to different things, or when it came to conspiracy topics, or deeper things like that, where I was stepping out away from my friends group, peers, couldn't do it for a long time. And then it actually was 2020 that really changed everything for me. And at first, at the beginning of 2020, I was kind of going along with stuff, mostly because I was in a really shitty situation. I was just kind of not in a good place. and surrounded by a lot of people that were also not in a very good place. So I was already in a fear frequency, and then being bombarded with propaganda is really easy to just like, oh my God, okay.
Yeah.
But as soon as I exited from that situation and found myself in a more stable environment, I started just doing just a little teeny tiny bit of research where I was
Nice.
like, hey, wait a minute. I don't like how you guys are acting right now. You're kind of being dickbags. And in fact, I'm noticing patterns play out among my friend groups about basically just shaming and blaming and pointing the finger. And that kind of behavior throws up a lot of red flags for me. I don't know about you, Jake. But
Oh yeah. Oh, that's definitely good to point out those
right?
patterns. Absolutely.
Shaming is not fucking cool, and that's
Never.
abuse. So I was like, okay, that's fucked up. What the fuck's going on here? Because I thought you guys were supposed to be like tolerant and nice people. I'm a recovering leftist, by the way. Just so
Oh,
y'all
well,
know.
welcome. Yeah, this is my name is Jake and I'm a recovering leftist. Yes, nice to meet you, Kayleigh.
My name's Kayleigh. I'm a recovering leftist and a
Yep.
recovering feminist. God help me.
Recovering vegan as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you using butter in your coffee, so good
Oh
for you.
yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, but anyway, so what actually started the catalyst, it wasn't even actually specifically COVID. I was actually looking up and comparing. I was trying to figure out why people hated Trump so much. I was like, what the fuck's going on? Why the hate for Trump? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna practice discernment. And it's not really something that I'm really very practiced with. I'm not a very logical thinker, but I'm like, okay, let's practice this because that's the only way you get better at anything. So I'm like, okay. So I looked up a couple of his speeches that were like trigger points for a lot of people,
Right.
like or good people on both sides, like
Oh yeah.
those speeches. And then was reading the transcript and then was looking at what people were reporting. I was like, what the fuck's going on? They're twisting his words. They're not telling
All
the
the
truth
time.
of what he said. What the fuck? And like that was the big catalyst there. I was like, oh my God, they're demonizing him, but this is not actually what's going on. So that's what started it. That's what fucking started it. And then it kind of snowballed from there. And I was like, okay, what else are they lying about?
Yeah, what else? What
You know
else?
how it goes. And then with the shaming and the blaming around this particular issue of our health, that was
Yes.
obviously that was another really big one. And then like I just I pretty much recycled and like fucking got rid of my whole goddamn friend group, like fucking
Gotta
almost
do what you gotta
everybody.
do sometimes.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, what was really cool was as I was starting to like face these internal fears, because I have a huge fear of conflict. I fucking hate conflict. I
Yeah.
think everybody does, but like it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. But as I was facing these fears and like being like, okay, no, I'm taking a stand. This is this particular subject. Um, Surprisingly enough, I actually had friends come out in support,
Right.
which was beautiful because I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that at all. And then it was like some of the most unlikely allies popped up and were like, girl, you say what's on your
Nice.
mind. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the best kind of motivation, right? When they're like, keep on doing what you're doing because it has a positive impact on other people. And I'm sure it was
Right?
surprising in the beginning, right? Oh, yeah.
It was surprising and comforting. And some of the biggest support I had was from people that I wasn't really even very close to, but like
Interesting.
those people that you keep on your friends list,
Yeah.
especially on Facebook, they
Oh,
just
yeah.
keep on your friends list because like I know you, we don't really agree on
Right.
things,
We're
and
all
then like
lurking on each other in a couple ways. Yeah.
right, I know, and then like I was like, oh man, these people I'm not even really friends with, but then they ended up being my biggest supporters because they're like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to come
Amazing.
around to this point of view, Katie. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of it, really. So this, like I said, this is new. And back to the thing that I mentioned about consensus realities,
Right.
there's more than just one consensus reality.
Oh, yeah.
There's a big mainstream consensus reality that they give us, right? And then there are all these little ones all around
Yeah.
you all of the time. And that's like a constant battle because like as soon as you identify with something, all of a sudden you're in another consensus reality. And
Right.
it's like, oh shit. So so like since then it's been like, oh, never mind, I don't identify as that, and also I don't agree with some of the shit that's going on here.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
got a piece, and then oh fuck, okay, I guess I identify with, I gotta let go of that one too now, god damn it.
Yeah,
And then
yeah. Constant battle, you know, it's hard to find stable footing in these consensus realities, and it can be exhausting to like pivot back and forth between so many of them. But it's, I respect your discernment and good, like, there are so many people who would never question why. Like, going back to the Trump thing really quick, like they wouldn't question why. They'd just be like, well, this is how it is, so I'm gonna go along with it. But I
don't you know he's a
really,
literal Nazi? And I'm like,
yeah. I don't know if you've ever met a
oh man.
Nazi. I hope you never do. But
I
yeah.
punch Nazis in the face, and I'm like, really?
Yeah. Pixar didn't happen, guys. Come on. Come on.
Classic.
Wow. Well, that was a really cool answer. And I once again, just like I was saying, I respect that you were willing to look deeper, even though it wasn't the best for the current friendships. But it's cool that everything worked out. And it's a really great testament to the fact that anyone who is wanting to speak their truth, knowing that once they do, once they begin, the people who will support you are gonna support you, and the people who don't, I mean, you know, it's not going to be easy to let go of some relationships, but in the end, it seems like what you're doing now, and it's kind of funny. I want to ask you about this in particular. I was looking on your YouTube channel. Looks like you started it in April 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I scroll down, I was like, when did this all begin? April 2020 was a very spooky time. This was like right on the cusp of what seemed to be absolute disaster. And you decided to
Yep.
start making YouTube videos. Like, that's amazing. What do you remember from the early days? I know that was only 2 years ago, but still, a lot has happened in 2 years, Kayleigh. What do you
I
remember from the
know.
very beginning of your YouTube journey?
That's a great question. Oh, thanks for doing your research. I
Of
love that.
course, yeah.
Okay, so things started to go to shit,
Right.
right? But I found that I was emotionally, and there's this, and I had been doing my own rune readings for a little while, and I felt comfortable enough sharing them.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt like it was time to start creating rather than just continuing to consume.
Hmm.
And that was the big catalyst. And actually, I just shared the story with somebody else not terribly long ago. But I was like really heavily consuming like astrology readings and
Hmm.
tarot readings on YouTube, just
Like on
straight
a
up on
daily
YouTube.
basis.
Like fucking every day, like several
Nice,
a day.
nice.
Like it was actually not good. It was actually more addictive than not.
Interesting, interesting.
And I finally came across this one tarot reader, and I will never forget this guy because he had such a huge impact on me. His name's Avery, and his channel is Seldom Dreams,
Mm.
and he was the first tarot reader I ever heard say love readings are bullshit. They are hooking into you and making you addicted to something that's fake.
Mm.
And these readings are not good. And you need to consider, like, without being preachy, obviously, he was not being preachy about this, but he was like, you need to really consider what and who you're giving your energy to.
Mm.
And if this is becoming an addictive pattern, then that's something that you need to look at. And I was so thankful for this because that's exactly what was going on. I was just like,
Mm. Yeah,
is my divine masculine coming back to me? And like,
yeah.
I couldn't help it, man. But
Right.
I could, but I could, but I could.
Right. Yes.
I
And
needed
you did.
the right person to say something to me. And
Right.
another thing that he brought up in a totally separate video was like, how much are you consuming versus how much are you creating?
Mm.
Are you just a consumer, or are you the divine creator that I know you are? And I was like, oh shit, Avery speaking truth. So
Mm.
so that was really big for me. I was like, you know what, I do have something to contribute. I do have a lot of skills and experience and tools under my belt,
Yeah.
and I ended up taking my channel in a totally different direction than what I had originally intended to.
Mm.
Like, my original intention for making videos was rune readings, but then also like different ways to ground, or work through just coming back into your body from
Yeah.
fight or flight,
Mhm.
you know. And then like just like little skills and tips and things that I've picked up, and I was originally going to do lots of videos about that, but then I found out there's actually lots.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I said, I don't really need to do that. I mean, I might still, but I ended up sticking with readings and just continuing to grow from there in that. And yeah, that's kind of where it
Nice,
started
nice.
for me.
Okay. And a shout out to Avery. That's a really cool idea to put out that, for me, like, this is the Loco Listens podcast. All I would do, and very similar to you, I would just listen to podcasts all day, every day. When I would talk to someone, friend or family, I would always say, hey, I was listening to this podcast and blank. And they're like, well, that's all you say. It's all you do, Jake. Like, what are you going to do with all this information? They're like, good question, guys. Let me see if I can create something out of this. So I'm
What are you
really
gonna do
happy.
with it?
What are you gonna do
Yes.
with it? Exactly. Yeah, you're gonna walk the walk or what? So really happy you decided to begin this journey of creation. And I would love to hear a bit more about how it shaped you, because it's definitely I mean, I've only been doing this for a maybe a month, maybe like a little bit more, and it's definitely changed me for the better. But I'm curious, when you think back, so I know you've been giving people readings, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but do you remember, besides this interaction with Avery or listening to Avery on YouTube, do you remember anyone else giving you a strong reading that kind of set you in a new direction, whether that was with runes or the tarot, astrology? Were there any like milestone moments where you were like, huh, the consensus reality has changed now, and now you have to process this new information? Does anything come up for you?
Hmm. I gotta think about that. I think every reading that I've had has been paradigm shifting in some way,
Mm.
in one way or another. I'm just kind of going through my head about some of them. Like the first rune reading I ever got, um, she was horrifyingly accurate.
Nice,
And
nice.
it was about stuff that I did not want to hear.
Yeah, yeah. That's how
That's
it is sometimes, right? It's like
how it
not what you're looking
goes.
for, but
And I was
sometimes what you
like,
need.
cheers, motherfucker.
Yep.
Hold on.
Sure, sure. Cheers to that.
Right? You fucking cheers to that.
Mm.
Sorry, I swear a lot.
Oh, it's great. You're right where you need to be. Yeah, this is
Okay, good.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The first astrology reading I got was actually from a sidereal astrologer.
Mm.
That was mind blowing and really cool because he had this really sweet app where, well, yeah, application program or whatever, where he showed you like, here's where your sun sits in the constellations, and this fixed star is right on your MC, and like this is what this means, and like this means you could make a good deal of money doing this specifically. And, and I thought that
Nice.
was really cool. And he was actually talking about art, like
Mhm.
specifically the thing that he mentioned as like you should be doing this was art. I was like, oh wow, what? And at the time, like I had just like really started painting a little bit and doing like a little bit, but I had never thought that it could ever be something that like people would pay me money for. I'm like, why is people? Because like the starving artist trope is just a thing.
Yeah, yeah. We've all seen it. Some of us have been there for sure. Yeah.
Right? So it's like, what? No. And I mean, that was just like, that was another hint and clue that I needed to be creating things.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that was definitely one. And then I've had a few other readings since then from other astrologers, Western, Babylonian. Like I like everything.
Yeah, might as well try it all,
Medic, so like fuck it, I like all the
Yeah.
flavors.
Right. Yeah.
I'll
Well,
try any spice at least once. You know
well
what I mean?
said. Yeah. Spice is the variety of life. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's okay. That's fine. Yep.
Yep.
So yeah. So anyway, that I got a couple of readings back to back, that mentioned specifically, looking at the occult and using, psychic or more specifically clairsentient or clairaudient stuff and developing those skills. And I was like, what the fuck? But then it was like, and yeah, so like that was like, oh, okay, maybe I actually can do this for other people on a more regular basis. And the more I've been stepping into it, the more accurate those readings have been for me. I'm like, wow, okay, they were onto something. Holy.
Practice makes perfect, eh?
Totally. Yeah, it really, I mean, practice makes better.
Practice makes better. Yeah, perfect. Maybe shooting a little too high, but yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I like aiming high, but like still.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I also like being realistic and grounded. That's that earth coming out, eh?
Right on. Well, that's a perfect segue because there's something that you've said before, and you probably said this many times that really stuck out to me. So speaking of being grounded, we're still in Taurus season, and there's something that you've said. So whether it's working with runes or the stars or the tarot cards, I've heard you say before that yes, you could. Yep, we're gonna look at some cards in a sec. I'm really pumped for that. But you've said before that we can get a blueprint or some type of representation of who someone is, like a representation of their soul, a blueprint of their psyche, whatever you want to call it. That's true to some degree, but in the end, free will still is a factor. And I've heard you speak on this. I would love for you to follow up. I mean, what do you think about that statement now, since you've been doing this for quite a while? And I'm sure people have brought it up to you before. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. So when I look at a birth chart, I can see some tendencies that are likely to play out. However, what you cannot see in the chart is where that individual is on their personal journey towards individuating, spirituality. These are things that you can't see in the birth chart.
Right.
You can tell generally like spiritual. However, sometimes that can play out as escapist behaviors, escapist tendencies, drug abuse, right? So like there's always this huge spectrum. And just from the hard left brain data, you can't tell where a person is on their journey.
Yeah.
You have to ask them questions. You have to talk to them one-on-one. So like you can have two people born on the same day, at the same time, in the same location, and they would have roughly the same chart. However, one person could end up going through totally different life events based on what their soul needs to evolve.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can always argue that like we're all one, we all come from the same soul, blah blah blah. But we're all unique and we're all individuals.
For sure.
We all have our own experience. And yeah,
sure.
you can't tell how someone's going to work with the hand that they've been dealt, right?
Yeah.
They could be dealt the same hand, but they might have two different strategies, two different responses or reactions. Right?
Well said. Yeah, well
Right?
said.
So yeah.
Well, it's people say this frequently, that the map is not the territory, but at the same time, the map can reveal quite a lot. And from listening to your YouTube streams and to especially like the recent eclipse, I know we have another one coming up, and that's what I want to talk about next. But yeah, it's very funny that like some people might mistakenly invest all of their time and energy into figuring out what the future has in store for them, when really they can decide the future. It's just understanding these tendencies and these patterns, which can be so helpful moving forward, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like you can tell, like, okay, so this is a great example. Speaking of eclipse energy, so like you can see, for example, on my own chart, like I have Sun in Taurus, right? That eclipse that we just had 2 weeks ago was right on top of my fucking sun.
Oh yeah.
Like literally. So it's like I can make some general predictions about some of the energies and layout because of that eclipse falling on that part of my chart. However, and I can kind of like guess like, okay, it's going to be from this time to this time. That's probably when this is going to play out.
Yeah.
And this is the likelihood of the chaos.
Right,
or or whatever. Chaos specifically for this one because it involved Uranus. And you can't predict that motherfucker.
Trickster planet.
Yeah. Um so like, you can kind of like figure out some of the themes.
Yeah.
But when those events occur, it's up to me how I react or respond to those
Right.
events. Right. So if I'm more ruled by my, say, lower natures, quote unquote,
Mm,
by like fear and like sexual energy or whatever, or
mm,
pride,
mm.
I'm more likely to react in shittier ways.
For sure, for sure. Been there, been there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
Mm,
And then to add on to that, even if someone reacts in a really crappy way, which we all do, we're human,
yeah.
um, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Right?
another
That's a learning opportunity.
yeah.
And, so yeah. And everybody's different. So, yeah, there's no possible way to determine how someone reacts from a chart, which I think I said 3 times already, but I really want to drive that point home.
Yes, no, that's great to emphasize for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sure the same could apply to the runes, to the tarot, to each of these modalities. So speaking of that, we have a special deck of cards, and we're gonna pull a card at the beginning of the episode.
I've been
Yes,
shuffling.
shuffling every day. I'm shuffling and shuffling. So we'll be pulling a card now, and then at the close of the episode later, whenever that is, we have we can go for as long as you would like, Kayleigh. We will pull a card to close out the episode. So it's a great opportunity to reflect and to think about the incoming energies, the present energies, and some of the energies that we've been releasing recently. So without further ado, would you like to explain the deck that we're working with and why you wanted to use this one?
Yeah. Speaking of getting grounded.
Yeah.
So I chose for the stream, especially since we're still in Taurus season, which is fixed Earth, to use the Druid Craft Tarot. So there's the title of it, Druid Craft Tarot, and the image on the front is actually the Empress, or in this deck, she's called the Lady. The deck is a little bit bigger than my hands. It's not comfortable to shuffle.
Yeah.
But the art is gorgeous. Like it's like
Cool sigil. Yeah.
literally bigger. It's
Yeah, right.
it's not your regular. It's a little bit bigger than a regular deck of cards, but it's gorgeous. And yeah, absolutely beautiful art. So sorry, the deck is actually by it's a married couple that did it, Philip and Stephanie Cargom.
Nice.
And it was illustrated by Will Worthington. So we can be
cool, yeah.
And I think before I pull the card, let's just take like a big breath of air, because I get recording and I get excited, and then I'm not really in my body. So
right, let's embody ourselves for sure. Re-embody.
All right. Nice. So I pulled Strength. And in this deck, for anybody that's listening and not watching, Strength in this deck is a young lady, much like the other strengths in other decks, but instead of a lion, she's with a wild boar. And it's really interesting because boar and pigs have come up several times in the last couple of days in a couple of our mutual groups.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. Also on the image, she does have a sword, but it's on the ground next to her because she doesn't need it. She has mastered, speaking of lower emotions and lower drives, she has mastered those drives to the point where she doesn't have to force anything or fight anything. She flows with those drives and uses them in an appropriate manner. And it's really interesting because we started this talking about create versus consume.
Yes.
And about all that creative energy.
That's
what strength is talking about. Strength is talking about how do you use that energy? Are you consumed by it? Does the boar drive you?
Right.
Or do you work with the boar in a mutually co-creative way? Boom.
Fascinating. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, just like you were saying earlier, how we were talking about creation. And I would say for strength, I mean, if anyone wants to create and feel strong and to feel confident in themselves, they would not really be able to suppress those lower drives. They would have to work with them and bring them up, elevate them, if you will, in order to become strong. Otherwise, it comes from a place of fear. So it's really cool that she's tamed this boar, so to speak, and it seems like it's there to protect her, but she is the master of it. And just like you said, that boar does not control her. She is in control.
Right. And like strength is a Leo card, right? It represents Leo. And Leo is all about living from the heart and heartfelt expression. And I really just love on this card, she's got her hand around this super red sash, but she's just gently touching her heart, right where her heart chakra is. Like, yeah, that's right.
Always got to emphasize that heart space for sure. For sure. Wow.
Nice. What a great opening card.
Boom. Yeah, for sure. For sure. When you first
Boom.
pulled it, I thought it was a bull. And then when you zoomed in, I was like, oh, that's a boar. I was like, no way, there's a bull on the card. Yeah.
That'd be funny.
That would be funny. Well, when you consider strength, you know, from any particular deck, I know you're referring to the lions on what's commonly seen on the Rider Waite deck.
And the Thoth.
And Thoth as well. Yes, I haven't even really been able to dive into Thoth, but when we consider what's coming up in the eclipse, I know we had mentioned Uranus in the last eclipse, and we have this full moon eclipse. It's coming up soon. We got a couple more days, like basically one more day, and it's coming. It's on. It's coming in hot. Yeah. I know, Kayleigh, that you are planning to release some content to film and record. So I don't want to give it all away because I have a lot to learn. I'm looking forward to listening. But when we pull this first card, does it bring up any thoughts or insights, revelations that you consider as you've been doing research into this next event?
You know what's really beautiful about that? Yes. So this eclipse, I'm a Western astrologer, by the way. So I use the tropical zodiac. And this eclipse is happening on the Taurus and Scorpio axis. So Taurus and Scorpio are fixed signs. They're part of the fixed axis. The other two signs in the fixed axis are Leo and Aquarius. Okay. So 4 signs, all fixed. What's really crazy, I guess, about this eclipse is that it is perfectly squaring Saturn, who's currently sitting in tropical Aquarius, right? So 3 of the 4 fixed signs are involved in this eclipse. And when you have a 3 sign square off like that, it's called a T square because it makes a T.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right. So when you have a T square like that, one of the ways out, or you could even say the best way out, and simultaneously the sign that receives the most pressure is whatever does not have a planet in it. So in this case, Leo.
Leo, okay.
So
it's
that's
an odd sign out here. Yeah.
It's interesting that we pulled strength because one of the best ways through a fixed T square like this is using your Leo energy, which is your confidence, which is your creative self-expression, which is following your own inner light and making sure that it's coming from within rather than relying on something outside of you. So that's really interesting. That's what we pulled. I'm like, well, yes, as a matter of fact, Jake.
Interesting. I'm glad I could ask, and I appreciate your in-depth answer. So when we're thinking about Leo and strength, and we're moving into this new energy, because I've heard you say before that an eclipse will give something but also take something away. So it's interesting to keep that in mind. Yeah, typically we're giving and receiving, or we're sacrificing and offering. So
yep. Or forced to.
Yeah, right. You know, we're not always consenting. Yes. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you, as a means of transitioning, because we brought up Leo, it's kind of sparked this gut feeling, and I feel like I need to trust my gut feeling and ask you this next question.
Go for it.
Someone has looked at my chart once before, but I did not. I was not in a place to receive it in a way that was like, I was more so like asking them out of like more of a let me just say this. I wasn't in a place to receive it for a beneficial means. Like I was more so indulging in what I thought would be a way to come closer to this person by asking them about my astrologies.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, the cardinal sin, right? You know, I'm sure I'm not
that's
the only
okay.
one who's been there. Yeah, it was very selfish of me, and so
I've been there, bud. It's okay.
happy to reapproach it. Yeah, thank you. So, but one thing that she said, and this has always stuck with me because I don't understand. So this is exactly why I want to ask you.
Perfect.
And I might be wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But she said something. She like gasped, and I don't know if she was being dramatic, but she's like, "Wow, your Mars is in Leo. Oh my god!" And I was like, "Okay, well, what does this mean?" But she never explained it to me, and I was too dumb to never look it up.
Aw.
So now that's exactly what I thought of when you were explaining, you know, the T the
The T square.
T square. Yes.
Yeah.
That's just what came up. I was curious if you wanted to speak on that, if that had any relevance to what was said earlier. And
Cool.
thank you for enduring my ramble.
I love it. Bring on the ramble.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, your Mars is in Leo. I'm looking at it right now, and that's actually kind of badass. So let me describe for you what Mars is first,
Mhm.
and then we'll keep that in mind as we talk about Leo and how those kind of play together. Okay.
Sure.
So when it comes to your birth chart, all right, the planets represent either literal physical people or a drive. It's like the what we're talking about.
Mm.
The signs represent the clothes that they're wearing or the role that they're playing.
Mm.
So, like for example, if you think about an actor, right? Like Brad Pitt in Burn Notice is not the same as Brad Pitt and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Different clothes, different outfit. Yeah.
And also and then you got Brad Pitt in Fight Club. It's three totally different Brads,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Right?
Hmm.
Since you referenced Fight
Yeah,
Club
Tyler
earlier.
Durden earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So Tyler Durden is not the same as Burn Notice, right? But they're both
Hmm.
Mars. Okay. So that's in different signs.
Right.
And then you have a third layer there of the houses.
Mm.
At the time of your birth
Mm.
makes such a huge difference because it changes what sign is rising on the eastern horizon at the moment of your birth and what sign
Mm.
is setting.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is huge because this changes the house layout of your chart, and the houses are what area of life it shows up in.
Mm.
So, for example, house is literally you, your body, your personality, your physical self,
Mm.
right? And then the houses go from there to like, well, how do you support your body? You need food. That's the second house. It's also like your self worth,
Mm.
right? And then like there's other houses that talk about like your work and your vocation and your partnerships, marriages, contracts, open enemies.
And there's
You
12 houses? Yes.
12 houses, yes,
Okay.
always 12 houses. And then there's houses that talk about like death and the occult and like
That eighth house energy.
yeah, that eighth
Mm.
house energy. And then like your friends and like
Mm.
philosophy, like literally every area of life is covered in your birth chart in some place.
Mm.
So the house determines what area this plays out in, right?
So if anyone's wondering why they should look beyond their sun signs, because
Yep.
these houses offer such a multi-dimensional look into who we are. So thank you for
Yeah,
explaining
so
that. Yeah.
right, like we're both sun in Taurus,
Right.
right? But my sun is in my fourth house and your sun is in your eighth house.
Mm.
So they will act totally differently. And then if you had someone that had sun totally differently,
Mm.
right? So that it changes everything. It changes
Everything.
everything. Right? Okay, so Mars in particular, Mars is the masculine principle of going and getting and doing and accomplishing and building and fighting and fucking. That's
Fuck yeah.
Mars. That's Mars, okay?
Cool.
That's Mars. I'm being fucking honest. You know what I
It's
mean?
great.
That's Mars.
Yep. That's the
um,
character for sure. That's what, yeah.
right? Mars gives us the energy to do things.
Mm.
Um, and Mars in a different sign will act in a different way. So when you take Leo, which is all about like theatrics and
Mm.
being in center stage and wanting to express from the heart, right? Leo, typically the stereotype of Leo is, well, I mean, actors, that's Leo
Yeah.
energy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the king of the motherfucking castle, bitch. Like, that's how Mars and Leo acts.
Interesting.
Confident.
What a pair. What a pair.
Mars loves Leo. Mars, that's a great sign to be in. It's like you've got the confidence, and it's like with a little bit of flair too added onto it, like a little bit of just touch of pizzazz, like
Cool. Oh, I love the pizzazz. It's very inspiring to hear you say that. Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah. Um, Leo. So like I'm curious why she gasped, because sometimes like Leo loves to be adored, right? So like Mars and Leo's like, yes, give me that worship, baby. But at the same time, the dark side of Leo is like fucking narcissism. Like
Interesting.
worship.
Okay. Yeah.
So like it can be anywhere on that spectrum of like playfulness and lightheartedness and like improv hour, or it could be like, if you don't worship me and love me, I'm gonna go like pout over here.
It
And
sounds like
then
Hollywood for sure. I mean,
yeah,
it's a great metaphor. It's like, yeah.
I love it. But yeah, like Mars and Leo is not a bad thing at all. It's actually a beautiful
Cool.
placement for Mars, because it's like it's confident. It's very confident. So
Excellent.
but I mean, that's just one part of you, right? Because the placements of your sun and your moon, and even like Saturn and Jupiter will temper that confidence, right? So that's just one example.
Right
So yeah,
on. Right
there you
on.
go. So I don't know why she gasped. Maybe
Yeah,
never
I
mind.
mean,
I'm
I
gonna
know
keep
it
that
was
thought to
like
myself. Whoop.
it was a positive sounding gas. That's just me
Oh.
interpreting a memory. But yeah, I mean, with the
Yeah, it's
best
probably like,
intentions. Yeah.
damn, that's a
Yeah,
sweet
right,
Mars.
right. I was like, oh man, I wish I knew. I wish I was in the know here. But
Could have
thank you
just
for
been
spelling
like,
that out.
you're fucking welcome.
See, yeah, like that would have been like, yep, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, fake it till you make it. Yeah,
You
yeah,
should have. Yeah, anyway, it's okay.
yeah.
That's funny.
It's cool. You're
That's
giving me a
really
bit of closure
hilarious.
today.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy shit, that's hilarious.
Well, can I ask you in for the sake of contrast, because maybe someone
A
is
different Mars
listening.
sign?
Well, no, I was gonna ask, and if you feel comfortable, so we've talked about Mars being in Leo. Would you like to tell us about your Mars placement, if you
Yeah,
will,
my
just
Mars
offer
sucks.
some contrast? Oh no, oh no, what have I
No,
done?
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Oh my God. Yeah. So I have Mars in Cancer. So you've got Mars, which is our drive to do and go and get and be and whatever and fight and fuck and all that fun stuff.
Right.
In Cancer, the nourishing mom sign. It's
Oh, I've
like
heard that before. Yeah.
nourishment, I feel, is the key words for Cancer. So it's like this soft and watery. Mars is a fire planet. Like it literally represents like inflammation, like
Yeah, yeah.
volcanoes. That's fucking
War,
Mars.
inflammation. Yeah.
Right? And then you put them in the ocean. What do you get when you mix fire and
Quite a
water? You
lot of
get either
opposition there.
steam, or you just put the fire out. So it's like,
Yeah.
so if your relationship with your own Mars energy is not healthy, so like let's say, for example, with me, I suppressed Mars and anger. I suppressed anger hard. Like my relationship with strength was not good at all.
Yeah.
Like suppress it, like we don't talk about that. Also my relationship with men, you can see it play out there too, not healthy at all. And then being in Cancer, it's considered to be at its detriment in Cancer, because I'll get into that in a minute, but
Sure.
I mean, if you just think about it, it's in a water sign. It doesn't
Yeah, the visual
fire,
makes perfect
water,
sense. Yeah,
bleh,
fire and water
right?
do
You either
not.
get like
Yeah.
steam, or like you put the fire out,
Yeah.
right? So Mars and Cancer, the spectrum for that is like on the best possible way that can play out is you're really driven to protect.
Okay.
right? Because Cancer is very protective with their shell, right? It's very protective of the home or of the homeland. It can be
Right.
very patriotic because Cancer represents like the homeland, right?
Mm.
It can be very like uh they can be really really good at getting things for themselves that are nourishing.
Mm.
So like for example, I haven't seen this yet, but I've heard that Mars in Cancer can be like an exceptional chef. Like, because
Oh, fascinating.
Mars's knives, it's sharp things. It's the warrior, right? So he's holding
Hmm.
swords. So you take a
Yeah, yeah.
warrior and you put him in the kitchen. He's got to be the best fucking chef of all time.
Right.
The
You gotta
sharpest
chop
of
up
knives.
some ingredients. Yeah.
The sharpest of knives. You know
The
what I
sharpest of
mean?
knives. Yes.
The sharpest of knives. So like, you know, and then like on the low side it can be a very passive aggressive Mars where like
Mm.
your anger doesn't come out in a direct way and you don't like address things head on.
Mm.
It's kind of like to the side, like a
To the
sideshow, like
side.
you know
Yeah,
what
like
I
literally
mean.
the crab moving to the side. Yeah.
Like literally, like I laugh at some of these delineations and examples, but it's true, it's fucking true.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, they're
It's
out
true.
there for a reason, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I can be so fucking passive aggressive. So I'm really working on that. Yeah, and getting more in touch with my Mars has been a really important part of my journey. And actually, interestingly enough, so sometimes with archetypes, um, we find different ways to interact with them outside of us
Mm.
until we can incorporate them and integrate them internally, right?
Right.
So, I mean, other than my horrific relationship with men for a really long time, that was one way that I interacted with it.
Right. Right.
My first tattoo, I actually got. I'll show you. It's on my
Ooh,
arm here. I've
nice.
got a Thor's
Yeah.
hammer right on my arm.
Oh,
So I
Mjolnir.
was like,
Wait, how do you say the
Mew,
hammer again?
Mjolnir,
Mjolnir. Okay, there we go.
Mjolnir.
Mjolnir.
It's really big. It's hard to show on camera.
Badass,
But
yo.
anyway,
That's
so
amazing.
like that was one way for me to like kind of make friends with Mars. I'm like, how about I
Hmm.
put a sign of a warrior
Yeah, yeah.
on my
Right.
arm, and then like maybe we can be friends,
To
you know?
integrate it. Yeah, we can make this work, Mars.
We
It's
can be
gonna work
exactly,
out.
exactly. I'm like, we can be friends.
Right, right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my Mars.
Awesome. Really cool. Really cool. See, it's like
Yeah.
something that also stood out from your YouTube page was where you talk about, and this is in your like about section where you're like, these modalities, runes, tarot, astrology, art, etc., can help people navigate through their trials and tribulations. And
Hmm.
I know you had mentioned the eighth house. This is something that you've warned me about beforehand, and I do want to get into a little bit. I know for the full spectrum overview of what we're getting into in this sky clock snapshot of who I could be, who I am, who I was. uh I will have to contact you outside of this podcast, but for the purpose of getting a basic idea or a general understanding of this eighth house, would you like to dive into that next?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about that. So yeah, so I pulled up your chart. I'll give your listeners a little background so they're like, what are they talking about? So I pulled up your chart before we came on here and gave it a quick look because you had asked me if I would give people a little taster, like what do you look at when you look at a chart?
Mm,
And then I pulled up your chart thinking like, okay, I'll talk about his ascendant and his sun and his moon, which are the big three, right?
mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I'll talk about those three and that'll be great and that'll be nice and light and easy. And then I pull
We'll
it
have
up.
fun.
I pull it up. I pull it up and I'm like, oh no.
Surprise.
Because you have your sun and your moon in the eighth house. The eighth house is death, the occult, like
Rock
deep
on.
deep traumatic shit.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, oh no. This is not gonna be light.
Mm.
Motherfucker. And there's more going on with that too, not just that. So it's
Right,
like,
right.
okay, I need to like give him a warning because like,
Mm.
I don't know if you really want me to go deep into the eighth house. So that's kind of like some background for people. But yeah, do you want me to actually on Zoom? If I share my screen on
Yeah,
Zoom,
go for it. Let me make
it,
sure you're.
it gets glitchy and terrible. I need a new laptop.
We can give it a shot. So like either way, I think this audio recording is gonna be badass. I mean, I've been having
Yeah.
a great time. This is
Okay, good.
making me laugh, making me smile. So if the screen share, totally collapses, it's an absolute disaster. Well, hey, I mean, we gave it a shot.
I like your spirit.
Thank
That's
you.
good.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise.
All right. I'm just going to make sure I've got it pulled up.
And while you pull it up, I just want to give a quick shout out to my friend L, One Thumb L. She just recently interviewed me on her brand new podcast called Speed Bumps. And, when you talk about the eighth house and death and trauma and the occult, well, that's what her show is all about. She interviewed me about the speed bumps that I've gone through in my personal life. So it was really awesome. Please check it out. L is a badass. Thank you, L.
That sounds pretty badass.
Yeah.
Speed Bumps. That's a great name.
Speed Bumps, right? It's perfect.
That's a great name. The speed bumps in life.
Mm.
I love it. Okay, so you should be able to
Yeah,
see
looks good.
a chart here. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so let me quickly kind of break this down. All right, so I just want to double check your information. So I try to do this at the beginning of every session just to like.
Yeah, it all looks good here. April 28th, 1995, New Haven, Connecticut.
I have fucked things up before.
3:50 p.m. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, so you see a circle on the screen there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this horizontal line labeled ACDC, TNT, that's
And
literally the
dynamite.
horizon.
Yep.
So it's literally the horizon, okay?
Okay.
This circle represents basically like a bubble around you at the moment you were born. It's actually like the center of the circle is supposed to be the center of the earth, okay?
Okay.
So eastern horizon, where the sun rises,
Mm.
over here, and this is the western horizon where it sets,
Mm.
okay? So this is in the sky at the moment that you were born. And then everything below the line is under the horizon. You can't see it, but it's still
Gotcha.
there. You just can't see it.
Mm.
So we see that you have your ascendant in Virgo, making you a Virgo rising. So
Right,
rising and ascendant are the same. They're interchangeable terms.
Mhm.
Right? So your first house is ruled by Virgo, making the chart ruler Mercury, because Mercury rules Virgo. Okay. So this is really important. So you're ruled primarily by Mercury. All right.
Primarily.
As far as your ascendant goes, okay?
And if anyone's confused and they're a Taurus sun, they've probably been told that Taurus sun is ruled by Venus, which is probably a different angle.
So your sun is ruled by Venus, absolutely, and in Aries there, right? So your sun is ruled by Venus, that's correct. But your chart, whole chart, and your body, because your ascendant falls in Virgo, is ruled by Mercury.
Okay.
So where the chart ruler is actually tells us a lot of detail about where you spend the most time and attention. And what's really cool, I already know that you're a teacher, and I see that your chart ruler is in the 9th house of teaching. So isn't that beautiful or what?
Interesting. Okay, I got to follow up with that a little bit more.
Yeah, so we can come back to that. But yeah, so that's really cool. It's like, hey, I already know that you're a teacher, and like, boom, I was literally a teacher.
Boom.
So I'm like, well, there you go.
There you go.
So I think that even if you weren't teaching kids, you would be teaching in some manner. In some manner. Or publishing too, because the 9th house can be like, it can be publishing, it can be philosophy, expand learning.
Cool.
So yeah, and I know that you read a lot, so that's really cool. Especially Virgo Ascendant. Anyway, so yeah, 9th house can also be travel to foreign lands. Specifically, like in Vedic astrology, in Indian Jyotish, the 9th house represents spiritual pilgrimages. Interesting.
Wow. That brings up something very like directly related to that word pilgrimage, because for Easter, I got to go visit Dallas, Texas, which is where I'm moving in July. And when I posted a photo to kind of like, hey guys, I'm in Dallas, I said that this was a pilgrimage for myself because I'm going somewhere totally different. I grew up just like you on the East Coast. I know you're up in Canada. I'm out down here in Connecticut, but Dallas, Texas is like night and day from where I'm from, and it's very exciting. It is like a foreign land, even though it's still within the U.S. And I did consider
Right?
this move is my pilgrimage that I've been working hard to prepare for. So
That's
that
so
word
funny.
just kind of triggered me a little bit. So I'm glad you brought that up.
You're going on a pilgrimage? That's so
Yes.
sweet.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's kind of cute. Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, so that's your ascendant. And so like what's really important about the Virgo ascendant, right? So back to this first house here. So you see like the first house encompasses part of Virgo and
Mm,
part of Libra, okay?
it's on the
So
cusp.
yeah, so this is your first. So with the Virgo ascendant, Virgo is typified by being neat, usually. Not always, but organized. Um, they can be really hard on themselves because they're perfectionists. They require perfection.
Mm,
And it's all about like being organized, detail oriented. Like these are typical of Virgo. And what's really, really cool is I've started learning about medical astrology and the
mm,
different body parts that signs correlate to. And when you really start thinking about it on a logical level, it makes a lot of fucking sense.
mm,
So Virgo is ruling the intestines. And what do the
mm.
intestines do for your body?
Well, they keep your system nice and neat. You know, if there's things that need to get rid of, then they will guide that process. Let's say putting it
Right?
nicely.
Yeah, they it organizes the useful things and pulls the useful things and gets rid of the waste.
Right on.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the description of Virgo right there. Boom, done.
Hmm.
But also like if you're holding on to things that are not good for you, then you get sick. And Virgo rules health, the health of the body.
Hmm.
And what do we know about our gut health? It's fucking so
It's our
important
second
to the
brain.
health. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
Virgo's ruled by Mercury, which is our logic thinking brain.
Yes. The messenger of the gods. Yes.
What the fuck? Like, mind blown.
I see what you mean now. I see what you mean. Now, can I
Right?
quickly ask you because my old Reiki teacher told me like, Jake, you're ruled by your throat, and I think this is common for us bulls. Is that true? Is the throat the body part of the Taurus sign? Is that
Yeah.
what was okay?
So I mean, I can go through it real quick, right? So yeah, yes, Taurus is the throat, the larynx, and the jaw, and the thyroid. So like this
Oh
whole
yeah, yeah,
area,
yeah.
the jaw,
Right.
right? Aries is the head, specifically the forehead, but the whole head, also the blood and the adrenals,
Interesting.
the
Okay.
adrenaline, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The energy to get up and fucking go,
I mean, I know Aries are very fiery in that particular way. So yes.
right? Right? And then Gemini is the hands,
Hmm.
the lungs, the arms,
All those dualities for sure.
right?
Yeah.
And then Cancer's the stomach,
Hmm.
nourishment, right?
Yes.
Nourishment,
Maternal nourishment. Yes.
the fucking motherfucking stomach, also the breasts.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Fucking pure
Source of all
logic. I swear to
nourishment.
God,
Yeah.
it's pure logic.
Right.
And then Leo is the heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
We
The
spoke about that a
heart,
little bit
think
earlier.
like
Yeah.
the chest cavity, but
Yep.
really the heart. And then Virgo is the intestines,
Mm.
right? We already talked about that.
Yep.
And then Libra is the kidneys.
Mm.
And there's something else that Libra rules.
That's fascinating too, because the kidneys balance your water levels. Like if you have too
Yeah.
much salt, then your kidneys will be like, we're getting rid of this. Like they will
Yeah.
balance your electrolytes. Yeah.
Right? And yeah, there's something else that Libra rules that's similar along that vein, and I forget at the moment. I'm sorry. I think maybe like the shoulder blade, just like something random
Oh,
like
okay.
that. I
Yeah.
forget. I don't remember. I'm really sorry. That the shoulder blades might be
You're fine. You're
Gemini.
fine. Yeah.
I don't remember.
There's so much to remember, and
Yeah.
I am just so blessed that you've been able to share what you've shared so far because that is
Podcasts are fun.
yeah. I love it.
Yeah, and then Scorpio. Scorpio is the sexual organs, the
Mm,
reproductive organs,
right.
and the rectum.
Ah. Okay.
So if you're holding on too tightly, you can't detox what Virgo's trying to get rid of.
Right. Okay. So they
So
do
that's
work
kind of
together.
funny.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course
Yeah.
they work together.
Of course.
And the kidneys help you detox too, right?
Yeah. Right. Right on. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So but specifically like the sexual organs and that
Mm.
creative center.
Yeah.
And then Sagittarius is the thighs.
Mm.
And if you think about the symbol of Sagittarius, it's a centaur, right?
Yep.
Or a human on a horse, depending
Yeah.
on which system you're looking at. It's some kind
It's a
of horse
mounted
thing,
archer.
right? And like how big are horses' legs, right?
Oh man, yeah. They didn't skip any leg days ever.
Right. Oh, I think Libra's the buttocks muscles.
Oh, okay. Those glutes.
Yeah, I think.
Could
Oh
be.
God, I'm gonna have to double check now. But
Please
anyway,
fact check us. We would love to learn.
Yeah. And then Capricorn is the bones, literally your bone structure, the
Wow.
knees.
Okay.
And what's really cool about Capricorn, and something that people kind of have a misconception about, is the rulers, right, are really only rulers because the people that get down on their knees decided to get
They
down on
bend
their
the
knees.
knee. Yes.
Right? Capricorn is actually a very hard worker. The people that will get on their knees.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right? So
More power to them. Yeah.
Right? But yeah, so the bone structure, also your teeth.
Mm.
Capricorn, because it's your bones, right?
Yeah.
And then Aquarius is your shins, your ankles, and I'm about 90% certain that Aquarius is like your nervous system as well.
Interesting.
And I don't know, I have seen Gemini as nervous system, but I think it's Aquarius, but I don't know. I gotta double check that. Like I said, I'm just starting to study medical astrology, but anyway.
Nice.
And then Pisces is the feet.
Oh, okay.
The good old feet. And Pisces, yeah, we'll leave it at that. It's the feet.
Very
Yeah, so
cool
that's
anatomical
the
breakdown. And
Pisces,
you
right?
referred to this as medical astrology?
Yeah, so medical astrology is specifically using your birth chart and the signs and the planets to like diagnose or predict different health
Gotcha.
issues.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I will probably never be able to do that in a reading, but like what's kind of cool is sometimes like it's like they might like talk about something and be like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure I see that reflected in this here." And it can be helpful, like yeah, it can be really
Yeah, it
helpful.
adds a
It's
fascinating
mind-blowing.
element for sure. Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, and I feel like it helps break down the logical meanings of the signs too,
Yeah,
right? Like
for
so
sure.
it's so logical, and it helps me understand the theme of the sign even more. So
Right on.
a lot of value. But anyway, so your sun is in your 8th house, right? And as far as like houses go, like I said, there's 12, and they all correspond to a different area of life. So I'll explain the 7th and 8th as an axis to the 1st and 2nd, because
Sure.
all of the signs and all of the houses work on an axis point. They're polarities. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first house is you, your body. The second house is how you take care of that body, right? The 7th house is your partner. So whether that's a marriage partner, whether that's a business partner, it's some kind of contract. That's what the 7th house is. It can also be like open enemies. So
Okay. Yeah.
It's
Like you
the
said, polarity, right?
yeah, it's the oppositional point, right? It's directly
Interesting.
opposite.
Okay.
So like you can come together and to butt heads, or you
Yep.
can come together to like contract.
That makes sense. Yeah. Could go either way.
Right? And then the 8th house supports the 7th house. Is literally the 7th house's sustenance. So it can be like quite literally, on a literal level, it can be your marriage partner's money. So like it can be other people's money.
Okay.
Or it can be stuff that you really don't want to fucking deal with. The 8th house is typically the house of death, of regeneration.
Right.
It carries the themes of Scorpio. So it's death, regeneration. It's considered a hidden house. So there's 3 hidden houses, okay? The 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. And they're like the quote unquote water houses. So in the natural zodiac, Cancer is the 4th sign. Scorpio is the 8th sign, and Pisces is the 12th sign. Right? So 4, 8, 12.
Those watery, hidden below the surface type of information.
Exactly. So the fourth house, the eighth house, and the 12th house, we don't really look at them.
Hmm.
And in fact, the eighth house is very uncomfortable to look at. You just so happen to have your sun and your moon here. So I'm like,
Much to learn, much to learn.
yay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's the eighth house can be the skeletons in the closet that we don't really want to look at, you know.
As Chance or Gabe might say, it's full of gravy, or it sounds like it'd be full of gravy. Yeah.
It is full of gravy.
Yes.
It is full of
Yes.
gravy if you're willing to go there.
Right, right.
And sometimes, especially if you have house place or planet placements there, we might not want to go there, but we have to, and we're always the eighth house. Whether it's a family member dies, and we have to literally deal with the emotional impact of that, and their estate,
Right.
like inheritances is seen from the eighth house. That's benefiting from someone dying. That's an eighth house matter.
Wild. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or it's like a life insurance payout. That's an eighth house matter.
Yeah, those could be very, very challenging conversations for sure. I see what you mean.
But like for real, or you know, and then like the occult is seen from the eighth house. So like different occult sciences. So whether that is like talking to spirits quite literally, or whether it's like tarot cards, or whether it's just using things to look at the hidden side of life, that can be seen from the eighth house. The eighth house, because it carries that theme of like and going deep, research and like psychology falls under this theme, right? So people with heavy eighth house placements or prominent eighth house placements like yourself are quite likely either interested in the conspiracy, like there's a spectrum, right? Interested in conspiracy, in psychology, in diving deep, in understanding human nature, because you've been confronted with heavy shit.
Yes.
That's pretty much it. That's
spot
how I
on,
would sum it
Kayleigh.
up.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's not a hard reading, man. I'm like, well,
yeah, I
you've
know.
seen I'm gonna tell you this, Jake. You've seen some shit.
Yes, I have seen, but I've also seen the light as well. And this is the kind of conversation that reminds me of that polarity. Like, yeah, we've all seen some shit, but like these learning about these modalities and diving into them with courage seems to be such a beneficial thing. And just like we had mentioned earlier, these readings can help people navigate their trials, tribulations, and turmoil. And I, as like a means of a sneak preview, this is very fascinating to consider when we finally meet up for the full reading. This will be very interesting to discuss for sure.
Yeah. And like, I really feel like the majority of the time when I'm doing a reading, like it's always a conversation back and forth because like I said, I can tell you the tendencies, but I can't tell you how you've dealt with it.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, so does this resonate for you? Have you seen this kind of stuff come up in your life?
It's a Q&A type of process.
Is this a familiar like, and then like if they have whys, like we usually asked a few whys, like why is this a theme? Well, this is a thing that you've got to deal with. And I mean, it's not always comfortable, but it usually ends up being that I'm holding space for them to share with me different experiences that they've had.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It ends up basically that usually ends up how it goes. Especially because like I don't shy away from the scary stuff in the chart.
Well, good for you. Yeah, that's this came up when I spoke with Elle on the speed bumps. We were talking about, and I made this mistake last time. Wasn't a Carl Jung quote. This was a Joseph Campbell quote. The cave you fear to enter holds the jewel that you seek, or the treasure that you seek is in the cave that you fear to enter. And when you mentioned this 8th house placement, I was like, oh boy, there's something scary in there. But like, we're gonna dive in. Maybe not tonight, but eventually.
It's not that scary.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be turbulent. Yeah, a little bit scary, but that makes it exciting because fear is always. What do they say? There's another quote. I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like whatever you want is on the other side of fear. It's like for sure. Like it's a great way to paraphrase Joseph Campbell, everything you desire is on the other side of fear. So
Well, excitement and anxiety show up as the exact same physiological process.
yes,
The
yes.
only difference is your perception.
Right,
Literally, it's
right. Your
adrenaline and
mindset.
cortisol.
Yeah. That's a good
Oh
way
my
to put it.
God, that's so perfect too. Because, like, okay, I gotta tell you about this. Okay, adrenaline and cortisol.
Yes.
Adrenaline, that's an Aries thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Aries.
And then Mars, the ruler of Aries, is the traditional ruler of Scorpio.
Mm.
So it's like, are you going to be fearful, Scorpio, or are you going to be brave, Aries?
Oh, there we go. There we go. So that's another polarity right there. I mean, the same quote unquote symptoms, that anxiety, the perspiration, the animation that would happen from this adrenaline rush could go both to fear or to inspiration. Really cool to think about it like that.
Right? Yeah. So, heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, so that's just a little teeny tiny little snapshot. And yeah, oh my God, there's so much, Jake. There's so
Yes, this is
much.
we'll have to do a part two. I mean, maybe who knows? Like,
Yeah.
have you ever done a podcast like where you go through like a full reading and like get that on the air?
Yeah. The one that I did with Roman,
Mm-hmm.
the full reading is on his Patreon. So like
Nice,
it was like
nice.
a 2 hour talk with him.
Yeah.
Only the first hour he released.
Right, right.
The second half was on his Patreon. And
Makes
I don't
sense.
remember what I don't remember
Oh yeah, that's
where
so much to remember. Yeah,
or
yeah,
when we started the reading. Like I'm not
yeah,
sure how much actually was on the public side, but
yeah.
yeah, I have done that and it was fun. But yeah, I just
Cool, cool.
I want you to be aware that like I don't hold back.
I love it, and I appreciate you for this. And you've definitely sparked some inspiring points in myself. Like I know, for example, shout out to Mario from Symbolic Studies, because he's also been talking a lot about the placements and the body parts, the medical astrology that we can look into. So I'm glad you've been able to go a little deeper to like share your take on some of these placements. And you've got
Totally.
the chart pulled up again here. What are we gonna get
Yeah.
into?
I
Yeah.
forgot to talk about your moon.
Oh, the Aries moon. Yes. Yeah.
I love that. It's right on the 28th degree. That's so badass. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I just want to talk briefly about like the difference between your sun and your moon and
Sure.
why you need to know your moon placement.
Mm.
And I fucking love that on the Vibrant that Chance just had with Michelle
Yeah.
that they brought up men's
The
cycles,
menstruation cycle. Yes.
the menstruation cycle and men's cycles.
Yes.
And the little hint that you guys got to look at your moon placement,
Mhm.
because that could be where it sparked off.
Yeah.
So very interesting. It's just one more reason why you need to know your moon. But
Mm.
I'm gonna tell you why you really need to know your moon. I mean,
Great.
that's important too, but like
Yeah.
okay, so the sun and the moon are called the luminaries. They're
Mm.
the two brightest things in the sky, right? The sun rules like our conscious awareness,
Mm.
what we're actually aware of, our ego, our identity. It's the most public of planets,
Mm.
right? So like when you look at someone, you're usually looking at a mixture of their sun sign and their ascendant, since the
Mm.
ascendant rules their body. So you see kind of a mixture of those, and the
Yeah.
sun is like your vitality.
Mm.
It has a lot to do with the health of your body
Mm.
as well. So there's that, right? That's your sun.
Mm.
You can consider it like your ego. And
Okay.
then the moon represents our emotional side, and it's more hidden, right? Because the moon comes out
Mm.
at night.
Right,
It's like
right.
it's logic.
Mm.
But anyway, so the moon often represents the relationship that we had with our mother and
Mm.
our perception of that relationship. It can also talk about, since it carries that theme of relationship with mom, it can talk about how we nurture ourselves,
Mm.
and how we nurture other people.
Mm.
But on a more like psychological level, it represents where we feel safe or what helps us feel safe and
Mm.
nurtured, right? So those are some themes that have to do with the moon. So with sun in Taurus, like Taurus is a very vital sign. It's all about the five senses, rules the throat. It's about the food we intake. Literally, it's ruled by Venus, which is a very sensual and touch-based sign, like quite literally, right? So Sun and Taurus were notorious for the saying is we love good food, good wine, and good sex. And I mean, that's not wrong. I mean,
Yeah. That's also a great like little Twilight language, like notorious. Like I never thought about that before, but that's great way to describe us bulls, Kayleigh. Notorious.
That's so funny. Oh man, good catch. Good catch. I didn't even think about that. It was coming out of my mouth. That's so funny. But yeah, so like and Taurus being a fixed earth sign, what a fixed sign really means, what that means is that it's at the peak of that particular season, right? So it's the middle point of that season. So for Taurus, it's the middle or the peak of spring. Right, so that's what the fixed means. But on like a psychological, more esoteric level, the fixed signs have to do with sustaining something. Right, it's all about literally the with Taurus, it's quite literal, the sustenance that you need for your body, right? Sustaining sustenance. So like resources, food, money, right? That kind of shit. And then yeah, so like that's brief overview of Taurus, right? Very sensual, touch based. And then with the moon, and like that's like what you're most consciously aware of, and
as the ego, as you said, like the sun, like the ego, it's like that's what I'm aware of. This is like how I might see myself. But the moon sign, Aries moon, is something a bit more hidden, a bit more occult.
A little bit more hidden, because like a lot of how we act is actually based, right? So our
Based
moon
in the unconscious, is that what you said?
on your subconscious.
Subconscious, right? Okay,
Yeah.
you cut out a little bit.
That's okay. But yeah, so like a lot of how we act is based on the subconscious. It's not based on our conscious will. It's like we're acting out from our moon sign a lot.
Right.
Depending on how aware of it you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so depending on like the aspects between sun and moon, whether they're in signs that like cooperate or not, we can have this internal conversation or lack of conversation,
or lack,
where like we're doing something with our sun and our moon literally feels a different way about it. So what's amusing to me about your sun moon combo is like with your sun, it's like you project a very like calm, grounded presence, right? And with Taurus, it's not Taurus doesn't necessarily like begin things unless they're ready to. Like they'll take their fucking time.
Oh yeah.
But when they're ready to do it, they'll do it. But meanwhile, your moon being in Aries, it's like, I want to start it now. Let's fucking
Why
go.
wait? Let's go.
Yeah. Because Aries is the spark. It's cardinal fire. So it's like the beginning, the initial spark, the initial flame that sets the forest fire, the forest afire. But like,
Lovely.
not the forest fire itself. It's like the initial spark, right?
Yes,
So,
the facilitator.
yeah. So what this actually tells me is, I mean, I could be wrong, but your relationship with your mom is described by Moon in the 8th house in Aries. So I would guess, and I could be wrong here, that your mom was probably a little bit more fiery, quote unquote, a little bit faster to do things.
True.
You know, maybe not as like steady or calm or as centered as you would have wanted her to be. Right. And then the 8th house adds a whole nother layer to it where like we're dealing with stuff that we don't need to go get into on air, but
I love you, Mom.
Shout out to the moms.
Yes.
Yep. But it helps you feel safe and nurtured when you're using your creative fire, when you're starting new projects, when you're diving into the occult, 8th house, when you're researching interesting new things. New especially is emphasized because we're talking about Aries. Right? When you are looking at ways to Looking at, what's a good way to put this? New ways to use the knowledge that you have.
Okay. Just like we had talked about earlier, maybe this was off air, but it's like, well, what are you gonna do with it? Or yeah, it's like, oh, if you're gonna
What are
listen
you
to
gonna
podcasts,
do with
listen
it?
to the astrology readings, then it's like, what are you gonna do with it? How would you apply all this novel information, whether it's in the occult or the conspiracies? And it's very fascinating because it does come from a place of passion, or it is a source of passion to dive into these things.
Totally.
But I feel like it does become destructive for me if I don't apply it or if I don't talk about it at the very least.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I mean, of course, you have your south node of the moon there too, which adds like a whole nother fucking layer to this. Of course. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get into that. No, I guess I have to get into that. But so just to be clear, like every planet has nodes, and what
Okay.
the nodes are, so where the ecliptic of the sun goes, the path that the sun goes, right?
Mm,
It's called the ecliptic, literally.
makes sense.
Where the planets intersect with that ecliptic, that's where their nodes are.
Mm,
The nodes of the moon are simply the rising and setting, or north and south intersections, right?
mm,
And we use those nodes to help us predict when and where eclipses will occur,
mm,
right? Because where that intersection occurs is where the shadows intersect, and that's how we get eclipses.
right.
So that's the north and south node. On a more like esoteric psychological level, we're talking about like what we're building and like past life shit. Like
Mm,
it can get really cool when you start
whoa.
talking about the nodes, right?
Yeah.
In Vedic astrology, and even Western medieval astrology, the nodes were described as the head and the tail of the dragon,
Oh, wow.
right? Vedic astrology, they call it Rahu and Ketu.
Mm.
And the Latin phrases are like Draconis caput is the head, and Draconis, oh fuck, I forget.
Oh,
Draconis something, I don't remember what it
this
is
is
right
the
now.
head and tail of the dragon. I mean, it reminds me of the Draco constellation of course, with that same etymology. Not
Totally.
not that I know much about Draco, but I've heard it mentioned a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, 100%. There's a few snakes up in heaven, but
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Draco's a big one. Draco's a
Yeah.
really big one. So
Mm,
yeah, so it was imagined that like the sun or the moon were being eaten by the dragon when we see an eclipse, right?
mm.
And that's just it's like they took a bite out of the sun or whatever,
Right,
right?
right. I see that.
So right, so we have some pretty active imaginations, you know what
Yeah,
I
good for us.
mean?
Yeah, humanity is very creative for sure.
Right? We're so fun. But anyway, but yeah, so the north and south node. So like you take these nodes and when you put them in the chart, then like you tend to be able to see what some of the past life experiences might have been like
Mm.
and what we're trying to build in this life. Um so, yay. So
Kayleigh,
this
have you personally gone through a regression? No, okay.
I'm
Are
too
you
scared to, man.
I'm also kind of afraid. Like, I mean, I'm just kind of like I'm definitely ready for it someday, but I know like this is where I need to start and then like the past life regression will come later. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. You were
That's
talking
okay.
about the south node and the north node as well.
Yeah, and I mean like regressions would be really okay, so with everything in life.
Yes,
I have mixed feelings about this.
right
And
on.
if I were to ever show you my chart and explain why, you would know why
Mm,
I have like a ridiculous amount of oppositions in my chart. So I'm
mm.
always all like, what are the two sides to this? Because
Okay. Well, it's
like
always good to look at both sides
with
for
everything.
sure.
But right, so like with regressions, I'm super curious,
Mm.
but I know that it's just my ego that really wants to identify with
Yeah,
something like,
yeah.
yeah, I shield maiden warrior, motherfuckers, like
Skull.
probably.
Yeah.
But also like, at the same time, like I don't want to know because I was probably not a nice person.
Yeah, who knows what we're gonna find.
Oh my god, right? So yeah, anyway, so the north and south nodes. But if you don't believe in past lives, you can still see this play out in early childhood.
Mm,
So it's fascinating. And
yeah.
right, so like it brings up so many questions like why would a child act in this certain way if they didn't have a past life where they were acting like that, you know, because every kid is different coming from the same parents. We're all unique individuals.
Right.
Anyway, so with your north and south node, you have to look at both. You can't look at just one in isolation because they're the nodes of the moon, right? So they all function together. With the south node, you have the south node in the 8th house in Taurus. So this tells me that in past lives or even really early life, you were very focused on very Taurus things, which is security, which is making sure that you had enough. In the 8th house, we're talking about shared resources. Also, just kind of side note, 8th house south node is very likely to experience different kind of paranormal events.
Ooh.
Like, just putting that out there, that's a huge possibility.
That's a whole nother episode, Kayleigh.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Right. So like that's a big thing for south node. 8th house Taurus is like but it can also be like, this is why I mentioned in my voicemail boundaries, because the eighth house is it's bonding with another person so totally and so completely that there are no boundaries. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, motherfucker.
So it really emphasizes the shared resources.
Shared resources, right? So with your north node, what you're building in this life is your 2nd house, which is about I have.
Right.
So what does Jake have? What are Jake's values? That's your name, right?
Yeah. Loco's fine too. Yeah.
That'd be really awkward.
Wait, who are you again?
Yeah. But like, you know, what do you value? What are your projects that you're doing on your own? What are you building? How are you ensuring your security, right? And it's kind of a mind fuck, because when you put in the nature of the signs in there, we're talking about 2nd and 8th house, but the houses and the signs are flipped. So like the 2nd sign is Taurus, but your 2nd house, this is falling in Scorpio. So
Scorpio,
it's like,
yes,
and
right in the polar opposite.
8th sign.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and it takes a little bit of time to kind of figure out how these are interpreted. But these, like, the houses are very important for showing the area of life that this shows up, right? So anyway, that's a super brief general overview of the nodes. And to get like even more information and detailed on this, you would look at the sign rulership. So for example, your south node being in Taurus is ruled by Venus.
Right.
So then we would have to look at Venus to see another layer of this, how this plays out. And you have Venus in the 7th house. So your south node acts out through your 7th house. So what that means is probably some interesting stuff comes up in regards to relationships, but we're going to leave it at that for now.
Always, yeah.
I mean, that kind of a statement's probably true for literally everybody, but like,
yeah, we'll all unpack it in our own special ways. You know, we're all very unique in that regard. Yeah.
But anyway, and then like the north node, so you can either look at the modern ruler, which is Pluto, which you are at the very, very end of the Pluto in Scorpio generation, or you can look at the traditional ruler, which is Mars. Right. So the North Node acts similar to that ruler, right? Because they're not planets; they're just points in the sky.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not any literal thing. So they take on the energy of whatever that ruler is. So anyway, it can get really, really complicated really quickly. So yeah, and it takes a while to like understand this shit. But
and just on that point too, you know, I want to offer this to you because like I explained to you as I preface this conversation, I'm a total noob. I've been given some information. Luckily, I've had people who have tried to teach me. I just was never in a place of receiving like I am today. So you've done an excellent job of reaching down to someone who is ignorant of most of this, but yet I feel like I've been learning quite a lot. And this is the kind of thing where I'll have to hit pause and go back and listen, but also I'll have to follow up with you and have the full deep dive. And
Right.
I was curious, in a bit, as this wraps up a little bit, because like I don't want to take up too much time. I know you're very busy. You're working on this.
I'm like, we're just getting started,
Yeah,
man.
we're just getting started. Like, the last thing I want to do is interrupt the flow, but I do want to make sure that we let people know, because you've been gracious and generous enough to go through my chart with me and give me like a sneak preview of what's coming up next. But if anyone else wants to learn more about their chart or work with tarot or runes, how could they reach out to you? What should they do, Kayleigh, if they want to work with you?
I think the best way right now to reach me is either through my email or actually through Telegram if you're on Telegram. So my email is kayleighberkana@protonmail.com. And you can leave a link for people because that's a lot of letters in there.
Sure. Yeah, the show
I
notes will be
was
full
not
of it.
I was not thinking about ease of typing when I put these words
But
together.
you are
There we go.
the Canadian Eagle on
Yeah.
Telegram, which is
Yeah.
badass. I hope I got that right.
Canadian Eagle 1221.
1221. Ooh.
Yeah, there's some number magic in there.
Yeah.
So and I do have a Telegram channel as well. So if you just search Kayleigh Berkana, it should come up. And yeah, you can leave a link for that as well. So that's the two easiest ways to contact me. I'm working on a website right now. It's not quite ready yet, but I'm working on it.
Cool.
And I'm not good at marketing myself, so this is a great exercise in learning how to talk about your skills and market yourself.
For sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
As my mentor says, it's all learning every day. It's all learning. And
It's true.
appreciate that for sure.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you say that you've done Reiki?
Oh, yes. So one of my old landlords was a Reiki master. She introduced me to the world of Reiki. I'm not a Reiki master. It's a very funny title as well. Anyways, I've gone through the level 1, the level 2 attunements. I'm not a huge fan of distance Reiki. I think hands-on is like the best way to transfer energy, but either way.
True Taurus.
Yeah, right, yeah. I'm all touchy-feely, but for sure the Reiki energy is something I think about a lot when I'm with my dog. And so that's as well as, just thinking about, like, I got to try acupuncture for the first time before I had surgery on my shoulder, which I do want to follow up on the medical astrology a bit next time we chat. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Reiki, Kayleigh?
I think it's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Universal life force energy. What a thing.
Right? Yeah, no, it's really cool. The first time I ever got any Reiki, I was not quite into the woo yet. But my sister was. Okay. And I had a fucked up shoulder, actually. Speaking of shoulders, it was my left shoulder specifically, where I tend to hold a lot of grief.
Yeah.
A lot of grief in the left shoulder. But anyway, so she did like some hands-on stuff, some movement, some energy, and it was really hot. It was really cool. So yeah, anyway, super fascinating. The first couple of times I ever experienced it, I like had some mind-blowing moments.
Nice.
Which was really cool. And then the second time I ever got Reiki. Just I'm pronouncing it different every time, just to fuck with people.
Reiki.
Anyway, the second time, she was able to tell where there had been an injury that was not injured anymore. But she's like, this needs attention, and it was like, didn't tell her.
Right.
There was no physical indication.
Intuition is amazing sometimes.
She just knew.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? But anyway, so like a couple of my like introductions to Reiki and the woo. And yeah, I don't know. I would really love to learn that. I think it would be really cool.
For sure. I think we should definitely follow up on this discussion of Reiki, because you brought up heat and there's so much I want to say, but I'm going to dive into another tangent, another rabbit hole, and ramble like I like I usually do. But as we come to a conclusion, and I'm going to thank you immensely for all of this, but I do want to have a little fun at the end here and reflect. So the first question, that ritual first question, was thinking about when you began to speak your truth. Now, what I would like to do is switch things up a bit. I'm going to ask you the same closing ritual question, except I would love to incorporate one more card from our lovely Druid deck that we used earlier.
Dun,
So,
dun,
dun dun dun. Would you like to prepare the final card for us, Kayleigh, as we move
I
into?
would. Before you wrap up,
Yes.
can I just say one
Oh,
thing
absolutely,
about
absolutely.
astrology first?
Yes.
So, if you are new to astrology, and you're trying to decipher your own chart, I highly encourage that, by the way. It can be confusing and overwhelming and a little bit maybe a little scary even, but do it. But like I started describing like the rulers of signs and stuff like that. If I were new, again, like I'm trying to put myself back into your shoes. If I were new again and someone started telling me about planetary rulers of the nodes and all of this stuff, that'd be really overwhelming. And I'd probably be like, holy shit, I'm out. So
don't give up.
Don't give up. But also, it's okay to keep it simple at first.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, for example, your nodes are so important. They play such a huge role in you, your life, your purpose. It's not your purpose, but it definitely helps describe it. So if I were new and I were trying to figure that out, I would look at first the sign that the nodes are in and just learn about that polarity to start with, and then learn about those houses and keep it at that and keep it really fucking simple at first to just start getting accompanied with those.
Yeah.
Right? And the other thing I would say is to learn your moon sign and learn your ascendant.
Right on. Right on.
Right. So that's where I would start if I were new. Okay.
Yeah. For anyone who is new, like myself, Kayleigh, as you can hear, is a wonderful person to speak to, and to, like she's suggesting, I'm definitely going to go out and try to study this on my own. I, like we were saying earlier with these affirmation statements, as a Taurus, I have lots of curiosity, and so I must follow up on it. Otherwise, I'll go crazy, because that's who I am. I'm Loco. So I appreciate the encouragement and the inspiration, and I am really looking forward to following up on part 2 of this wonderful conversation. Whether or not it's a podcast that's recorded and produced, it's going to be fascinating. And I appreciate the wit and the humor and the spirit that you brought to this conversation today, Kayleigh, because it can get pretty personal. And I appreciate the openness that you enter into this conversation. But yeah, we've been having fun. So gotta say thank you for that.
Right, that flew by. Thank you, Jim,
Yeah,
for being
of course.
a great host.
Thank you.
You
Always a
great,
pleasure.
kid.
Appreciate you. Bull gang.
Bull
So
gang.
speaking of that, what do we have here in the mystical deck of our Druid allies?
Do you want me to pull a card and then ask the question that you're gonna ask, or ask the question and then pull a card?
Good question. Let me ask you the question. Why don't you pull the card, keep it face down so we got it ready, and then I'll ask you the question. You can flip it over, you can explain to us what we're seeing, and then you can go into your final answer.
Also, I fucking love that we started talking about your Mars first.
Yeah. It seemed like the right thing. My gut was like, you got to bring this up, because if you don't, you're going to regret it. And
your stomach is ruled by the moon.
Oh, there
and
we
your
go.
moon is in Aries.
There we
So
go.
you asked about your Mars.
Oh, see? Trust your gut, folks. Always trust your gut.
I love it.
I love it.
That cracks me up. Oh my god. Yeah, anyway, okay.
All right. So, Kayleigh, for the ritual closing question on the Loco Listens podcast, I'd like to ask you if you could think back to your past self, whether that was you yesterday or last decade, last month, however far back or however near you want to go to your past self at any point, ad infinitum. What would you say to your past self if they were looking for some kind of advice or guidance or words of wisdom? How would you guide your past self to wherever they need to go?
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn.
That's not what I would say. I'd probably say that.
Oh, damn. Oh, what you don't know.
I would tell my past self that absolutely no one has the right to tell you how to feel.
Right on.
You decide how you feel. Never give up, never surrender.
Mm.
And yeah, it's okay to feel.
It's okay to feel. I love that.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful takeaway here.
Yo,
oh man,
the Princess of Motherfucking Cups is what I pulled.
Princess of Cups.
Cups is about feelings.
Mm.
The princess is like a newer energy. She's so serene. I love this card so much.
She's
just
beautiful.
Holding her cup, just meditating on it.
Mm.
And I love that some of the court cards have bare feet, some of them do not. She does have bare feet, and I think that symbolizes that she's more connected to her body and to the earth.
Mm.
She's grounded, right?
Very grounded.
And she's quite content with how she feels. And because this is an autumn card, I feel like she's coming to terms with letting go of things.
Mm.
Letting go of certain emotions or situations that caused certain emotions.
Mm.
What was really cool is I made a face before you finished answering the question because it looked at the bottom of there's the Ace of Cups.
There it is. Yeah. Oh man.
And then I was like, it's okay to feel.
Yeah.
Cups.
Cups, of course. Speaking of feelings. Wow.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah. Well, this has
you.
been.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you, Kayleigh. This has been wonderful. I'm really happy we got to do this. Just so you know, folks, we were almost gonna cancel. Big giant hugs to Kayleigh because we all have roadblocks and we overcame them and
speed bumps.
Speed bumps. Yes, thank you, Elle. We've got through them. We've come out stronger, older, wiser on the other side. And this conversation has had so much to offer, and I appreciate your time and energy. And I'm looking forward to continuing this correspondence. And one last time, I think people should follow you, subscribe to you on YouTube. How can they find you on YouTube? Your name, Kayleigh, is spelled with a GH. Would you like to go into how to search for you just to make sure we're all on the same page?
Yeah, so my first name is spelled Kayleigh, and then Berkana is Berkana. If you search that, I'm the only one, so should be me. The
one and only.
Should be me. You can also find me on Minds and Gab under the same name, Kayleigh Berkana. And then, of course, my Telegram channel as well is Kayleigh Berkana. And then my email. It's Kayleigh Berkana at protonmail.com because fuck Google.
At Proton because privacy matters, people.
Yeah.
Well, she came, she saw, she dropped the hammer of the gods.
Boom, right?
Boom. Well, happy Friday the 13th. I mean, I meant to ask you about this special day, but
yeah,
we'll have to, just roll with it. But either way, this has been an absolute pleasure, Kayleigh. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you soon.
You too. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Same to you. Likewise.
Bull gang.
Bull gang. Ta-ta for now. Wow, folks, that was a lot of fun. I am so blessed that Kayleigh was able to come on to the Loco Listens podcast. This is episode number 20. We did it, folks, 20 episodes. Very thankful for all of you. And Kayleigh, thank you so much. We not only had a great laugh, but we also shared a lot of interesting facts and knowledge and insights. A lot of cool things to get into. And I certainly have my notebook ready here to go back and dig in through some of these revelations that you've shared with us today. So Kayleigh, thank you so much. You are welcome back anytime. I would love to continue this chat. And for anyone who wants their own reading, even though we only scratched the surface on this recording, there is so much to be learned, and Kayleigh is a wonderful guide. So please hit her up. You can find her on YouTube. Just type in Kayleigh Berkana. You will find her astrological superstar, the cartographer of the celestial bodies, as I said in the beginning. Very fascinating, and I'm very blessed. Once again, Kayleigh, thank you so much. And for everyone else listening, if you want to get in on the conversation, if you want to chat and share some memes, I know Kayleigh's there. Come check out the Telegram group. It's a really lively discussion at all times, whenever possible, and we would love your contributions. That would be t.me/Loco listeners. Download the Telegram app on your phone. Join us there. Like I said, bring your memes, bring your fun, bring your humor. Just come as you are. And with that being said, folks, I want to thank everyone again for being here. Episode 20 was a lot of fun. Looking forward to many more. So, wherever you are, be here, be now, and be you.